I want to pivot downhill, so I'll lock up the rear, crank the wheels over, pulls itself over, and now we can drop back down. I have something to show you guys today that could totally change your crawling experience if you have an axial rig with an LCXU transmission, such as this base camp here. It's a new bolt-on dig unit option. Today we're gonna go over the conversion kit. I'm gonna show you what's included with it, what you're going to need, how to install it, and show you how it performs. Now, for those of you that don't know what a dig is, it's a unit that you could go and add onto your transmission, and it will actually allow you to pivot your rig. It will lock up the rear end for you, and when you pull the throttle and steer your rig, it will maneuver the front of it while it plants the rear, and it just helps with the ability to go over different obstacles and terrain. So here's the kit laid out. They give you a nicely detailed instruction sheet on how to install it, and here are all the parts that it's made up of. So as you can see, there's a new rear case to the transmission and an extension case as well. We've got some new drive shafts, I believe, for the rear, some new gears, actually the new lower spool gear. You can see this is the area where it's going to go lock up the rear. This little round metal plate is actually going to go in the back of this, and once the shift fork slides back, it's going to lock this into place and lock out the rear end of the vehicle. We got some ball bearings to go along with it, screws obviously for the installation. You are going to need a third servo, however. Luckily the base camp comes with a 3-channel transmitter, so you'll be able to plug this right in, but I'm going to go with a Reef's micro servo to install in this, and here is the servo plate that it's going to get attached to. All right, let's head over to the bench, and I'm going to show you how to install this into a base camp with an LCXU transmission. Sometimes just seeing things go together really helps people out, so I'm going to walk you through the entire installation process. Here is my base camp, and first up is removing the transmission. There's 4 screws holding it to the skid plate. Remove those, followed by the screw pin for the rear drive shaft, and then you can pull the transmission out. Next, you'll want to remove the gear cover, followed by the motor. Now you can remove the rear drive shaft and the rear transmission case after taking the screws out, of course. And now we could remove that lower assembly, that stock lower assembly, and assemble our new lower gear assembly. Place the outdrive plate on and install the 4 screws. But adding a little Loctite is a good idea. Remember to transfer over this upper bearing. And now we can install that new lower assembly, followed by the gear case that has that bearing. Then slide in the bearing for the output shaft, followed by the output shaft itself. Now assemble the shift fork and slide it into the locker drum. Everything should move nice and smooth. You don't want anything to bind up here, just double check it. And now we can install the lockout plate into the back cover. Make sure you put the bearing in that back cover, and a little bit of Loctite on those screws is a good idea too. Then slide the rear cover onto the transmission. You might have to wiggle the case around just to get everything set, and then install the screws that secure everything together. Using a pair of needle nose pliers, hold the shift fork rod and install the end on it, followed by the servo saver guide pin. Now we can assemble our servo. Again, I'm using a Reef servo, so I'm using the optional adapter. Just be aware that you're going to have to supply your own screw to secure that servo saver down. Make sure you put the servo mounts on, and then you could bolt the servo down to the aluminum plate. Now you could slide the servo saver over that guide pin and bolt the aluminum plate down to the transmission using 2 short screws. Once everything is together, this is what it's going to look like. Do a quick check to make sure it works. Put your gear cover back on, and now it's time to swap out the drive shaft ends. You're going to use the universal part. I sometimes stick a screwdriver through the holes just to make it easier, because sometimes they have Loctite on there to break everything free. Then I'll transfer over the screw and the universal joint. Sometimes I add a little bit more thread lock just to make sure everything is secure. And now we can drop the transmission back into the truck. Make sure you line up all of your screw pins in your drive shaft so everything is in phase. Bolt your transmission back down, install those screw pins, and plug in your 3rd channel servo into the auxiliary port. To activate the dig, you're going to hit the up button on the 3rd channel. This will lock out the rear end. It looks like everything works great. Let's head outside now so I can show you how it works. Here's a good spot where I can give you guys a demo of how easy it is to use this dig. All right, I want to pivot the truck back around. I gotta get my tire up and over so I can just pivot a little easier. There we go. Now I'm gonna hit the up button, the A button, to lock out that dig. As you can see, the rear wheels are locked. Pulls the front over. and now we could just go down the hill. Here's another good spot where I could use that dig. I want to pivot the front end over to get onto that bridge, so I'll lock out the rear, pulls it around. Now we could get up, there we go, get a little traction. Oh. That was a save. All right, let's see if I can do this again. Oh, there we go. I gotta pivot the front over some more. There we go. This is where it's gonna come in handy. Come down the hill and I'll lock it up. Look at that, perfect. I can let it out, it'll crawl right up. Hear a little clicking as it disengages, but so the dig unit is an easy bolt-on option that gives your rig an advantage out on the course. The only tough part about installing it is clocking the servo saver just right so it engages when you push the button on the stock radio. I mostly demonstrated the benefits of a dig while going through a turn, but it could also come in handy when you're descending hills to drag the rear. I did notice it hanging up a few times when I was out on the trail, but that might be because it's brand new and it needs to break in a little bit more. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. I'll have links in the video description below. And hit that subscribe button because I've got more content on the Basecamp coming up.